Imagine this. A woman in her late 40s sits alone in her apartment, sipping black coffee by the window as the city hums below. She isn't waiting for anyone. She isn't scrolling for validation. She simply exists, utterly at peace with her solitude. And yet, men are inexplicably drawn to her, not just for her beauty, but for something deeper, something unsettlingly primal. Why? Society tells us men chase youth, naivety, the blank slate of inexperience. But then, why do so many find themselves haunted by the woman who needs no one? Why does her quiet independence ignite obsession, while neediness repels? There's a paradox here, a silent rebellion against what we've been conditioned to believe about desire. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what happens when one substance is already complete? When a woman's solitude isn't loneliness, but a declaration of sovereignty? Men sense it, the unshakable aura of a soul that has faced its own shadows and emerged untamed. And it terrifies them. It electrifies them. Is this obsession about control? Or is it about the unconscious recognition of something they've lost? Or worse, never had? The modern world has sterilized masculinity, reduced it to performative bravado or hollow conquests. But the woman who lives alone, who has made peace with silence, carries an unspoken challenge. I am whole without you. Can you say the same? The answer claws at them. It keeps them awake. And it forces a question so uncomfortable most will flee rather than face it. What does it mean to desire someone who doesn't need you? This isn't about romance. It's about a silent war between fear and longing, one that reveals the deepest wounds of the masculine psyche. And the battle is just beginning. The obsession with mature, solitary women isn't mere attraction. It's a symptom of something far darker. A hunger for the unattainable, a longing for the unbroken. Carl Jung called it the anima, the unconscious feminine archetype within every man, the shadow side of his soul. When a woman embodies wholeness, she becomes a mirror, reflecting back what most men lack: integration. She is not a fantasy to be consumed, but a force that demands reckoning. And that terrifies the modern masculine psyche, which has been conditioned to seek validation through conquest rather than self-confrontation. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this tension centuries ago. The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. Yet modern men are taught to love only what they can control and hate what they cannot. The woman who lives alone, unshaken by societal expectations, disrupts this fragile power dynamic. She does not perform. She does not seek. She is. And in her presence, a man's deepest insecurities surface. Am I enough? Or have I spent my life chasing hollow victories to avoid answering that very question? Arthur Schopenhauer argued that desire is suffering, a relentless cycle of want and disillusionment. But what happens when the object of desire refuses to play the game? When she cannot be won, only met or not met at all? The mature woman who thrives in solitude is a living rejection of transactional love. She does not fill voids. She exposes them. And so, the obsession begins. Not because she is perfect, but because she is free. Free from the desperate need for male approval. Free from the performative femininity that reassures men of their dominance. She is a relic of something ancient, an echo of the sacred feminine that once demanded men rise to meet her, rather than shrink her to fit their insecurities. But here's the cruel twist. The very thing men crave in her is the thing they've been taught to destroy. A culture that worships consumption cannot tolerate what cannot be consumed. And so the battle rages between fear and longing, between ego and soul. The question remains, will men break the cycle? Or will they keep chasing, forever haunted by what they don't understand? This obsession does not exist in a vacuum. It ripples outward, warping relationships, distorting desires, and leaving a trail of unspoken casualties in its wake. Cognitive science reveals a cruel irony. The human brain is wired to crave what it cannot have. The scarcity effect twists logic into obsession, making the emotionally unavailable woman irresistible, precisely because she cannot be possessed. But this goes deeper than psychology. It's a cultural sickness. A society that equates love with ownership cannot comprehend a woman who refuses to be owned. And so men orbit her like moths to a flame, mistaking their own burning for light. Viktor Frankl once wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Yet how many men realize they're trapped in a loop, reacting to an illusion rather than engaging with reality? The mature woman who lives alone becomes a blank canvas for projection. She is the cool muse, the unattainable prize, the missing piece in a man's fractured self-image. But she is none of these things. She is simply herself. And that is the greatest disruption of all. Neurologically, this obsession mimics addiction. The dopamine spikes from the chase. The cortisol crashes from rejection. It's a chemical roller coaster mistaken for passion. But the mature woman who values solitude does not feed the cycle. She is not a drug. She is a mirror. And in her reflection, men glimpse the truth. Their hunger was never about her. It was always about the void within themselves. The consequences are devastating. Relationships become power struggles rather than partnerships. Intimacy is replaced by conquest. And the most tragic irony? The very qualities men admire in her independence, her depth, her unshakable sense of self, are the ones they unconsciously try to erode, seeking to transform her into something safer, something smaller. But here's the rub. The woman who has faced her own solitude cannot be unmade. And so the cycle continues until a man dares to ask, what if the thing I've been running from is the only thing that can set me free? The way out begins with a single blasphemous thought. What if the obsession was never about her at all? This is where true rebellion starts, not with winning her affection, but with incinerating the need to. Jean-Paul Sartre warned that hell is other people, but the deeper hell is needing them to define you. The mature woman who lives alone has already crossed that burning bridge. She has met herself in the silence and found it enough. For a man trapped in the cycle of craving, this is the forbidden realization. You must do the same. The first step is excruciating. Stop chasing. Stop fantasizing. Turn the obsession inward like a scalpel and ask, what broken part of me mistakes longing for love? Carl Jung called this shadow work the brutal, necessary excavation of everything you've been running from. The irony? The qualities you admire in her peace, her autonomy, are not gifts bestowed by circumstance. They were forged in solitude through the very self-confrontation you've been avoiding. Aldous Huxley saw this clearly. Liberty means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. Here's the unwelcome truth. No woman, no matter how extraordinary, can fill the void where your selfhood should be. The rebellion is not about winning her. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to. History's great awakenings follow this pattern. A moment when the slave realizes he's been holding the key to his chains all along. Start small. Sit with your own silence until it stops feeling like an enemy. Resist the cultural hypnosis that equates solitude with failure. Relearn desire as admiration rather than hunger. The mature woman isn't a prize. She's a road sign. And the arrow points nowhere but inward. Here is the secret at the heart of the labyrinth. You were never obsessed with her. You were obsessed with the version of yourself she revealed. That quiet electricity you feel in her presence? It wasn't chemistry. It was recognition. The part of you that remembers wholeness resonates with its reflection, like a tuning fork vibrating to its matching frequency. Carl Jung called this the alchemical marriage. Not the union of two people, but the integration of a fractured self. The tragedy is that most will spend their lives mistaking the mirror for the destination. The ultimate truth is this: The woman who needs no one was never the exception. She was the rule. Human beings are born complete. Culture teaches us to dismember ourselves, to outsource our worth, our joy, our identity. Her power isn't in her independence. It's in her refusal to participate in the mutilation. When Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are," this is what he meant. The journey isn't toward someone else. It's back to yourself. The mature woman living alone isn't a fantasy. She's a foreshadowing. Now the real question remains. Will you meet her there? Not in her apartment, but in your own wholeness? The obsession ends where it began. Not with her. With you? Here's the secret that unravels everything. The mature woman who lives alone is not an object of desire. She is a mirror reflecting a man's unlived life. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming whole, reveals the brutal truth. What men perceive as attraction is actually envy. Envy of her emotional sovereignty. Envy of her hard-won self-possession. Envy of her ability to exist without begging the world for permission. This is why the obsession feels so primal, so urgent. She embodies what psychologist James Hollis calls the golden shadow, the disowned potential within every man that he's been too afraid to claim. Her solitude doesn't repel, it accuses. Her contentment doesn't bore, it indicts. Every moment she spends in peaceful autonomy is a silent question. Why aren't you this free? The French philosopher Gaston Bachelard wrote, "Solitude reveals itself to be the very essence of being." Herein lies the final paradox. The woman living alone has achieved what masculine culture fears most. She has become untouchable by seeking nothing outside herself. And this is precisely what makes her magnetic. Not despite her indifference, but because of it. The ultimate truth is this. A mature woman's power comes not from rejecting men, but from having first rejected society's scripts. She is whole because she paid the price of wholeness, the terrifying work of facing herself without distraction or disguise. And so the circle completes. The obsession was never about possession. It was always about initiation. She stands as living proof that the prison door was never locked, only imagined. Now comes the real question. When will you stop staring at the reflection and become what you admire? The revelation strikes like lightning. This was never about her at all. That magnetic pull you feel toward the woman who needs no one? It's not attraction, it's homesickness. A longing for the unbroken version of yourself you forgot existed. Carl Jung called it the self, the whole, complete being buried beneath layers of societal conditioning and abandoned potential. Here's the truth that will either liberate or devastate you. Her power doesn't come from rejecting you. It comes from having first reclaimed herself. The mature woman living alone is simply a woman who stopped asking permission to exist. And in her presence, you glimpse your own unrealized possibility. What psychologist James Hollis describes as what life wants from you rather than what you want from life. This explains the obsession's peculiar quality, that mix of admiration and resentment, desire and fear. She represents the road not taken, the version of you that could have been if you dared to walk alone through the fire of self-discovery. The French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir saw this clearly. There is a truth in the attraction one sex exerts on the other, but it is not the truth that is imagined. The final paradox? The very qualities that make her irresistible, her emotional sovereignty, her quiet confidence, her radical self-sufficiency, are available to anyone willing to pay the price. Not the price of money or status, but the far more costly currency of ego death and uncomfortable truth. So here stands the ultimate question, the one that has been waiting beneath all others. Will you keep chasing the reflection, or finally become what you admire? The answer will determine not just who you love, but who you become.